Good indeed, and thank you very much, Mariambo, of course, for helping us bring this conversation into perspective through important statistics as well as data. Well, that is a conversation that is going to shape the program tonight. We just want to have a look at the status of data protection here in Kenya. Remember, Kenya is one of the few countries in Africa that has enacted data regulations, and of course in 2020 the country did set up the Office of Data Protection Commissioner. Well, joining us on the set, our guest tonight is Muthuri Kathure. He's a senior program officer at Article 19 Eastern Africa. He's going to explain to us what do they do. They have offices from the US to Kenya to London, and of course he will be helping us to understand what do they do and why the choice of a name, Article 19. Well, thank you very much indeed, Kathure.
Thank you very much.
Why Article 19?
So Article 19 is a global organization that works on freedom of expression and access to information. And so we derive our name Article 19 from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, UDHR. So Article 19 of UDHR talks about freedom of opinion. And so that's our bread and butter. That's what we do every day, protecting freedom of expression, either online or offline. So
you don't have any connection with the Constitution of Kenya, Article 19?
No, we do not have any connection with that in terms of our name, but then while in Kenya with the Eastern African Office, we work towards promotion of freedom of expression in Kenya and other countries around the region.
Fantastic. We'll be, hearing from you more on this. And next to Kathure, we have Whitney Misheni. She's a political economist. She's a regular feature on this show. Thank you very much, Misheni, for your time.
Thank you, Brian, and a good evening to your viewers.
Very good indeed. And next to Bisheni, as always, we have Fred Ogola. He's a governance expert. Asante sana, Fred, for your time.
Thank you very much, Brian.
I want to start with you, Kathure. When you look at the status of data protection law in Kenya, what conclusions do you draw?
There is I will look at it from two sides, the good and the bad. I think first and foremost, the conversation around data protection is very alive. It's what we are all having, we are all talking about Kenya and even beyond Kenya. As early as yesterday, telcos were being slapped with fines and impositions when it comes to breach of data protection. And in Kenya, we've seen the growth of data protection from when it came into place in 2019, the regulations coming later on in 2020 and setting up of the Office of Data Protection Commissioner. And so the good side to it, we've seen there is a lot of increased awareness, but also that citizens are understanding that their data is very important and should be their privacy to data is a key thing. But also on the other side, we've seen government coming in to ensure that data protection is upheld, and that as it's been mentioned in the beginning of the show, that Article 19, Article 31 of the Constitution, sub-Article C, is protected through the data protection law. On the other side, the bad to it is because there are challenges with the data protection in Kenya, the culture of Kenya in terms of just giving their data everywhere, oversharing what their data is, not understanding personal data, but also sensitive personal data, but also the operationalization of that office that came into place in 2020. We understand there is that need for them to work very closely with the ICT ministry, especially when it comes to issues around exemption. And for example, one of the exemptions that we have is around national security when it comes to data processing. And what we've seen before that, when such powers or limitations are allowed to be left with state agency, there is a likelihood of excesses in terms of implementing the expectation. The other challenge again is it's a young office, but also we've seen that the budget allocation to the office has been small to enable it operationalize. But I would say by large, and we've seen a lot of growth, great conversation happening around data protection in this country.
Very good. You see, when you look at the data privacy law in Kenya, I mean, it draws its strength from Article 31C and D of the Constitution of Kenya, you know, that deals with the right to privacy. Yeah. And at this point, I want to hear from Whitney. Do you believe that, you know, the data privacy laws in Kenya, you know, are strong enough to safeguard our data?
Thank you, O'Brien, and also a good evening to your viewers. I would say that the data protection laws are quite efficient in my view, but because it was enacted in 2019, meaning it's still a learning curve for some public organizations, be it government and also for some private sectors. They're yet to catch up, but I would say, as my colleague has said, it's still an ongoing conversation. But I do believe that the issue in Kenya is the culture. When we look at the culture, our mindsets are still a bit, we're still yet to understand what's really going on in terms of data privacy. When we look at Kenyans, as he said rightfully, Africans are actually at large. You have a nature of oversharing, meaning when we probably log into these websites, we're giving out not unnecessary, but more than information that is needed. And I do believe that a principle in data is also data minimization, meaning we should be giving less information about ourselves, and also we should be giving data that is fit for purpose, meaning we should be asking probably the people who are requesting for our data, be it the data controller or the data processor. As data subjects, we should be asking them, why do they need that data? We shouldn't be giving out our information freely. We should, as we log into these websites, we should be looking at be it cookies. Are we accepting all the cookies when we're just logging into websites? Probably, as we also know, that digital lenders in the past have come under sharp focus because of, you know, that data breaches. They're asking people to, you know, to sign up to things, and also, you know, Kenyans, as I've said, the issue is about culture. We do not read the terms and conditions of some of these apps that we are downloading. We are accepting cookies. We're giving out information just haphazardly, not knowing the reason why they're asking for that data. Meaning, I do believe that it's more of a culture. We need a paradigm shift in our culture. But the laws, I do believe, in my view, they're very sufficient. But Kenyans are yet to catch up, be it in the private sector and in the public sector.
And I like the fact that you are bringing in the issue of you know, just logging into websites and of course downloading applications. And these days something very interesting is happening. I mean, before if you log on to any website and before you proceed, a pop-up is coming up asking you, do you accept cookies? Or do you, how are they phrasing this? Do you accept our cookies or do you decline? Okay, if you say I accept the cookies, then if you're reading an article, it's going to open. If you say you decline, then you're not going to read that article. Is that a base that, you know, companies are using just to ensure that they harvest your information? And first of all, can you tell people what are cookies? And we must be very clear here, these are not the base cases we are used to.
Interestingly, that what you're saying that is that there are so many other things apart from that. You go, for example, to a Java, then they tell you have to give them your ID number or your email number. You go to many shops, for example, you go to a mall, there's a free Wi-Fi. And because we like free things, which is cultural thing, then they take you through a process that you have to pay your data, which is, like you said, the new oil and the new gold, as Data Lady has told us, that is very humble. So you know that your data is important, so they give you that data for free at the expense of accessing your data. If you have your own Wi-Fi, no one will ever ask you. Like if you walk to a mall, let's go to Junction Mall, you go to any mall in Kenya, they'll give you free Wi-Fi, but at the expense of you giving your email address, and they ask you also, can you accept to be sent some messages that is coming your way? But just to deviate from that a little bit, I'm sure I won't talk about cookies because the only cookies I know are the cookies that we eat. Wow. But I'm sure that the
Kathure will help us.
The Kathure will help us. But my opening remarks here is about the issue of, I'm surprised about the Article 19, operating the US and Europe. There is what we call open data policy. So even if you're talking about the issue of keeping data private, there is a compromise. Actually, this came from the point of view that some people keep so much information which are useless to them, but they deny the people who can use them. For example, in Kenya, if you want to collect data, you'll be told, can you come with a letter? For example, even students want to collect data for research. It's difficult to do data for research here. Even to write a case study that can help to educate people like me when I'm a lecturer, we always want to write cases. It's hard. In the US, if you ask for that information, or Europe, they will either give you or they must explain why they should not give you. In Kenya, they say comply or explain with open data policy. If you ask people, how many people you come and say, no, you have to fill a form so that we can tell you how many people are in our company. So I'm seeing that that's a serious issue. Then at the same time, you might find there's a compromise between privacy, data privacy and security. Because if we don't know anything about you, how can we help you? And if you are so secure, you are so secure in terms of your data, you can't be helped when you have a problem. For example, that's why people reveal symptoms. You go to a hospital and say, I have these symptoms, I have this allergy, I have this and that. So sometimes you have to really look at what are you really defending. Are you defending your privacy at the expense of your security, safety and health? Or actually defending your health by actually revealing more to people? And then of course there's another thing which you have to tell me. There's this called cloud computing, where your data stays in cloud. So if your data in cloud, and Kenya has a policy that even if you put data in cloud, there must be on-site server that is sitting here. So you cannot just say data is sitting on the cloud, maybe sitting in Germany or sitting in the US. So I found those difficult. And the last comment I have to make about here is about what I will call, from another book which is interesting to read. It's called The Narrow Corridor. The Narrow Corridor says that the society is powerful, the government is powerful. Then they said, to the extent the government knows about you, the government has more powers over you. To the extent the government knows nothing about you, they have no power over you. For example, all the Kenyans now who are registered, you remember Kenya Kwanza came with the issue of bottoms up, where everybody registers through either a phone, Hustler Fund. You know, Hustler Fund was a source of harvesting data, I can say it. Because when you go to take Hustler Fund,
how do you know that?
Of course they harvest data, they have harvested the data, you have to register.
But you cannot sit here and say that the intention of Hustler Fund was to collect data.
That now they know how many Kenyans have ID, have M-Pesa, but do not pay taxes. He said it. So that is. I
don't have any information of that.
Well, I mean,
but we can just leave for that.
We leave for that. What I'm trying to say is that the more the state knows about you, the more the state has power over you. For example, in the US or in Europe, if you come in and take up an apartment, you are on floor number 7, door number 8. To change that with their phone number. So if you commit any crime, the policemen don't look for you like we are looking for so-and-so picture here. They just come and press the door. Oh, Brian. So I'm saying, to the more that the state knows about you, that's why they came with the data protection, that there's something the state can look from you without your permission. They cannot come home and check your house without your permission. It's about protecting you against the state. There's something quite interesting in South Africa, that South Africans are moving away from smartphones and they're using this we call in Kenya Mulika Mwizi. Because they say the more you have a smartphone, the more actually you're not protected in terms of your data, because it can be accessed, it can be data mined, and they have these phishing, let's say, tools that can fish out data from your smartphone. So I'm trying to say that it's a delicate balance between safety, security, health, and privacy.
I want to go back to Kathure. I mean, when you look at the data protection law, this came about, at a time when the issue of Huduma number, was in the mind of all Kenyans when the government was trying to roll out a Huduma number. And then, a lot of questions, started coming out. I mean, how sure are we that the information that we are giving to the government is going to be safe? Who is going to be the custodian of this information? And how is our data going to be protected? And as Professor is saying here, I mean, the government has so much data about us that you don't want to imagine. For example, I mean, the government, it is a custodian of all our ID numbers, of all our passport numbers, of all our mobile phone numbers. They have access to that information. But do Kenyans really understand their rights when it comes to sharing their data?
Let me start from that point of when the data protection law came into place. I think we can look at things politically, but also we have to appreciate the reality on the ground. The conversation around Data Protection Act was there even before the Huduma number. It's a discussion that was there for 10 years, people talking about it. We also must appreciate there were other regulations before that that looked into data protection, especially in the financial sector, with the banking sector, before the Data Protection Act. Then coming to the Huduma number again, to also ensure that we don't politicize the thing with data protection. I think the Huduma number, which were part of that case as Article 19, it was thrown out because of failing to meet the principles of data protection. And the biggest thing was that it failed to do what we called data protection risk assessment. What that means is you as a data processor or I'm forgetting the other. You're supposed to do some assessment to ensure that the data that you're collecting is safe. And if it's not safe, what are the risks? And what if this risk happen, what are the mitigation measures? So that's one of the reasons why the court threw out Huduma number. So let's not also politicize this and say it came around the same time with it. In terms of...
but it expedited the process.
Yes, it helped. Like the answers came in from the Data Protection Act to respond to the issues that we raised as part of that case in terms of the implementation of Huduma number.
Yeah, because the fact that, we are supposed to have the Office of the Data Protection, stemmed from the fact that, Article 31, B and C, states that Kenyans have the right to data privacy, to ensure the government has the right to ensure that the information and data about Kenyans is stored in a private manner and it cannot be breached.
Yeah, that's true. And so responding to the second part of the question in terms of understanding the rights Kenyans, first and foremost, I think the Data Protection Act, the heart of that law is the right of the data subject. The data subject is you and I who share our data with either data controllers or data processors. Often data controllers, because data processors will get the data from data controllers. There is a whole section of that act, that talks about the rights that you as a data subject do have. The right to access your data, the right to be forgotten, for example, you don't want to be part of that. The right to correct if information is wrong, and many other rights therein. The only issue is that we do not know about this act, but also we do not know that this act is not meant for the regulator. This act is not meant for the government. This act is not made for the banking sector. We look at it as something for the others, or a privilege for us who are seated here, but not the actual person who goes to a supermarket, buys something, and the next thing they receive a message telling him there is an offer. So there is a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of disseminating the information in the Data Protection Act for people to understand, and also to simplify this information. One of the things that we keep talking about, and I keep talking about as a practitioner in the digital rights world, is that digital rights work has gone very far and left the people that it claims to be working with miles behind. People do not understand the concept of data protection. We've not been able to simplify it to the language that Mama Mboga, who is getting a loan from this mobile app, and things like that. So that's what needs to be done mostly, awareness, disseminating information about the Data Protection Act. But actually there are rights provided for the data subject in the Act.
We'll be coming back with more conversation because we just want to find out. There's so much data harvest that is happening in this country, from traffic lights that are now AI enabled to security cameras installed in many parts of this country, just collecting your images and to signing of books, when you're entering, for example, when you're entering into offices and shopping malls and so much. And so how is the regulation of this information? So that's a conversation that we should be having, once we come back. You're watching The Scorecard. And tonight our conversation revolves around data protection laws in Kenya. We're in the company of great men and women. We're talking about Marie Yambo, who is in studio with us. Marie Yambo, I'm sure, there are some responses from Kenyans. You'll be giving us some insight into that once we come back. You're watching The Scorecard, live from Broadcasting House. That is Marie Yambo. She's on the screen and she's calling for your information, what you are saying about the show. So stay right here. A break is well deserved.